The danger is that Europe will fail and the British people will drift towards the exit.
Cameron saying public disillusionment with the EU is at an all-time high and promising to give Britons a straight referendum choice on whether to stay in the EU or not, provided he wins the election in 2015. So just how damaging would a UK exit be? I want to put that question to my next guest, Fredrik Reinfeldt, Sweden's Prime Minister. Prime Minister, many thanks for talking with us this morning. How worried are you that Britain will leave the EU?
Well, it's a vital interest that they stay in, and I see Cameron's speech as an initiative how that could be made possible. It reflects, of course, very much the discussion in Britain, and he's not the first European leader to express concern about where Europe is heading.
You're on a panel right this morning, laying the foundations for Europe's renaissance. Yeah. It's a shame Mr. Cameron's not on the panel.
That's true, but he has another speech. But it's a very interesting world that are emerging. Africa is now rising. Asia is already very strong, Latin America. And it comes to Europe now being under pressure when it comes to jobs, when it comes to growth. A lot of the reforms done in Southern Europe are starting to pay off, and that is what we need to discuss.
You know, we're all friends, of course, but Sweden is an ally of Britain's, politically, outside the Eurozone. What's your advice to David Cameron? Have you spoken to him here in Davos?
Yes, well, I will meet with him tonight, and we spoke ahead of his speech. Absolutely, we are very close in the view that we need to increase competition, that we need more free trade agreements with the growing parts of the world economy. So without that, we will have a different European Union, and therefore we need UK inside. And I welcome very much that the speech and the discussion ahead of it have now started also more positive remarks linked to Europe in Britain, which I think is of vital interest.
Let's talk about the economic crisis. We hear from a number of people that things are getting better now. Your finance minister says that's not so. He says this is a lull before a renewed crisis. Do you share that view?
Well, I agree that what you have seen is that the part of the market pressure is off, but there is still a lot to do on the reform side. The unit labour cost is still too high in Europe. The lack of competitiveness is still a problem. And the continent is actually trying to combine very high costs for welfare and at the same time having low growth figures, and that is not sustainable in the long run.
Unemployment. What is the rate in Sweden?
Well, it's around 8%.
Okay, and what is, in terms of, it's been a big theme of today, but in terms of the sort of reform we need, the structural reform in the market, in terms of the training, the cooperation between the public and the private sectors, is enough being done?
No, you need to do more. The thing that has happened is that it's a structural change. A lot of the jobs we used to have actually gone. And the ones that are coming are very often well paid, and you need a lot of skills to be able to be employed. And the problem is that large part of the population have a hard time to actually come into the labour market, and there we need these talks with social partners on how to lower thresholds, and that is what we are trying to do in Sweden. That's also the problem throughout Europe.
I want to talk about the crown. You talked about competitiveness. The Swedish crown is stronger than usual. I believe you're at odds, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're at odds with your finance minister a little bit on this one. You think that's fine. He says it's a problem. Where are you going on this?
Well, you know,
are your views converging at all?
I've been active in politics for 20 years, and all the time we said we have such a weak currency, which is a problem, because it's taking away the purchasing power from people's work pay. So now when we finally have a situation where we have a stronger currency, I won't complain, but it puts a lot of pressure on our export industry, and we need to be competitive with other means than leaning on a weaker currency. And that's a new situation to Sweden, but it reflects a very strong Swedish economy and a very big trust into the Swedish economy as such.
Let's finish up with the banks, another of our themes. Your finance minister is coming into this discussion quite a lot this morning. He's been very tough on the banks. What is your message to the Swedish banks this year? Is it don't raise dividends, keep capital on balance sheets? What is the main message?
Well, the Swedish banks are very well off. They are very well capitalized. We are preparing to have higher requirement when it comes to keeping their own capital. We think that's very important because we have a huge financial sector in Sweden, and we need to protect the taxpayers' money, because if we have learned one thing, if we have a crash in the banking system, it will end up being paid by the taxpayers, and that's what we are trying to be clear on with the Swedish banks.
Prime Minister, many thanks for talking with Reuters this morning. Sweden's Prime Minister Fredrik Reinfeldt.